Let me tell you a story real quick. This story's got to do with a bird, it's got to do with a cage, and it has to do with us. It's got to do with me and you, and here it is. A couple of weeks ago, my brother sent me a couple Snapchats. In the first video, we find out that they found this bird, this yellow-green bird that's in this shopping cart cage. As the videos go on, they free the bird. The bird sort of waddles around, walks around for a little bit, being all cute. But in the last video, that bird is far away in a tree. It is free as can be, and the caption says, "He belongs to no one. He belongs to no one." So I showed this to my dad, and he had the same reaction that many people would have. That comes from a place of feelings that this is just sad because that bird is just gonna die out there, in that tree or somewhere. But the thought that came to me was that that is better than dying in a cage. And that is what brings me to this video. Because that bird story has reminded me, amongst many other things, that just like that bird, we were once wild. Just like that bird, we have been domesticated. Just like that bird, we are behind the bars of many proverbial cages. The concept of a cage is such a powerful thing. By its function, a cage keeps the outside out, it keeps the inside in. And this cage structure has manifested itself in our lives through so many forms. A cage on physicality, a cage on spirituality, a cage on mentality. And really, at the end of the day, the function of those bars is to divide and do nothing else. And as I have on a personal level sought truth of how our world works, on why it is the way it is, into our past, through our present, I've been looking at the systems, structures, lifestyles we lead, and the ideologies that underlie all of them. And I have found time and time again that all of our civilizations, all of our lifestyles and essential ideologies are built with cages. And it's funny because civilization, being a civilized person, has a positive connotation. If you say someone's civilized, it doesn't really mean anything negative to our brains. But maybe that's just because we've been civilized, because we've been indoctrinated for civilization. Because you see, we have been civilized. If you look at the basic ideologies behind times of imperialism, colonialism, which inevitably leads to slavery, there is a narrative to spread civilization, to spread sophistication to the savage, wild men that's on the other corner of the world. That, the white man or whatever civilization perspective has to spread their wealth, their knowledge, their technology, their good fortune, and their systems to the brown man, to the black man. Using savage, using wild as a negative thing. And we can see that it worked. All around our globe, people have been domesticated. Creatures that were once wild have been turned into cogs in a machine called civilization. Inevitably, civilizations, these systems leads to various forms of slavery. Through those forms of slavery comes another narrative, that these once wild creatures are no better than beasts of the field. And that phrase, beasts of the field, to me, that means a lot. That tells us a lot. Because that means that from the perspective of whoever is saying that, they domesticate beasts to work their fields. And I was just listening to a talk by Toby Hemingway a little while ago, which I highly recommend. But essentially, fields, the invention of the field, is what is the basis for all of our civilizations. It's what all of our ideologies are built upon. And this is something important to know for why things are the way that they are. You see, one of those main ideologies that come out of the field is that the wild is dangerous. In order to create a field, you have to destroy your ecosystem, destroy the mountains, destroy the forest, destroy your savanna, destroy biodiversity in order to plant one or two crops, a monoculture agriculture to feed your people, to create a surplus. And it's usually grains. Why? So that you can store the food longer, so that you could feed the city, so that you could feed the masses. And that's why it's called civilization. Civis is the root of it, which means city. And out of that relationship, you no longer are reliant on the ecosystem. You're no longer eating from what the forest gives you, from what the savanna gives you. You're eating from your fields. And everything that was you were once a part of in that ecosystem becomes dangerous, because then those bugs, those critters start coming into your fields, your lands, to eat your food. And they start coming in there eating your stuff. The wild men in the ecosystems, they're dangerous because they don't listen to our rules. They don't listen to our laws. So out of that relationship also comes immense, intense territorialism, land ownership. From that also becomes the need for control, because people have to parcel out the land, parcel out the food. People have to give something in return for those landlords and food lords. That creates specialized jobs, specialized labor, industries, and economies that have to run on this system of destruction. That's how it starts, the field. That's when the wild becomes dangerous, when biodiversity and being a part of your ecosystem becomes something that's looked down upon. Contrasted with the wild, uncaged creatures relationship. They do not tear down their ecosystems to eat, to live. How could they? They are a part of their ecosystem and they know they exist within it. And they don't go to the grocery stores, which comes from the fields, for their food. The forest is their food. The ecosystem is their life and their death source in a way. And you can see this relationship of civilized and wild transfer even to the mythology of men. In the civilized, sort of deal with spirituality and mythology, it always ends up becoming religion. And it's because religion becomes less about spirit, less about divinity in our existence and experience, but it becomes more about rules, laws, the holiness of the in-group and the evilness of the out-group. Boom, another cage, another division. And religions, gods, always reflect our societies, always reflect the powerful. And because civilizations become authoritarian, God becomes some authoritarian boss man in the sky. Contrasted with the wild man's general relationship with mythology, with spirituality. They have gods of the sky, they have gods of the land and the rivers, but the thing that ties it all together is that they see divinity in what is around them. They see the divinity in what is here, not in what is beyond, not in what rules over them, but in the systems that they are a part of and influence. And they see that it is beautiful and it is energy and flow and balance and beauty. It is physicality and spirituality, not just connected but integrated. It is full of wonder, not fear. That is the difference between the caged and the free mindset of spirituality. And the civilized relationship with experience manifests itself not just in spirit, as another cage, but as I talked about earlier, with control. You'll find that control is a main factor of all civilizations, for you cannot have a running civilization without control. It is reliant on control in order to keep running, because of the fields and because of the land ownership and the food ownership and lords owning grains, owning lands, turning into industries, economies dependent to run on destruction, dependent on trapping creatures as laborers, as parts in the machine, as gears in the system. We become dependent on turning away from our own true nature, our own true freedom, which is health, cooperation, wonder, in order for economies to run. Why? Because we become dependent on it. We are dependent on control, on the civilization, to get our basic needs met. Food, water, shelter. And look at this. This is a house. This is something that's I'm grateful for its, safety and shelter. But it's also a cage. Because we give our lives, we give our energy to make money, to buy these properties and keep them up, when otherwise we would become homeless. People become homeless because they cannot fit into the system. When in the wild there is no homelessness. In the wild, that cage structure does not exist. It starts with fields, which leads to control, which leads to specialized roles, which leads to dependency on the running system, which inevitably is inequality. Inequality is not just a byproduct of civilization or something we have to accept in our world. It is a feature of civilization. Inequality is a feature of the cages that we built around our lives. Every set of people has certain labels, freedoms, rights given to us by the civilization. These cage structures are not only inherent with our relationship to food, our relationship to power and spirituality. It's inherent in our civilized relationship with self, our relationship with each other. We cling on to the labels and the identities that we create and that are placed on us. We defend these egoic perceptions, these cages on the self, so much that we divide from each other. We divide from each other, and this is the perceived self that gives us false community. False community which only superficially takes the role of the real community, the real tribe that we seek so much, that we long for in this unnatural state of being. And that's why these massive entities and these false tribes divide us so successfully. It's easy. Because feeling better than, feeling more knowledgeable than, feeling different than another group makes us feel good. It punches that dopamine button like crazy. And so then we feel the need to enhance the perceived self. Our goals, so we feel like we need to get more shit, new shit, better shit. But when we realize that that perceived self is only the conditional identity in the contextual situation of the self, not the true nature of what we are, we can see that we are beyond the perceived self. We are beyond these identities, labels, cages. We are what's left when you tear down all of the cages we've built around ourselves. We are what's left. That pure being. Consciousness itself, the one that is aware. One living, spiritual, physical, mental thing that, just like the inherent matter and energy of the universe that cannot be created nor destroyed, our true being, is inherent, not created or destroyed, but morphs into new experiences. We realize that we aren't concrete. We aren't concrete cages, and we can't be building our lives and identities with these things. And it's funny, the phrase, be yourself, be yourself. I want to offer a new phrase or a different outlook on that phrase. That maybe we don't need to be ourselves, for ourselves are constructed at this moment of mere perceptions, identities that are only conditional, only contextual, that only make us miserable when we identify with them, because we become judgmental, we feel worse than others, we feel better than others, and we feel the need for more. We feel the need to feed into the system, but we don't need that shit. We don't need to be ourselves. We just have to be purely, beautifully. Fall back into our true nature, our true self, and just be. These are the cages that we've built around ourselves, built into our life, just because we've forgotten that we, in our true nature, are wild. In our minds function, we are wild. In our bodies function, we are wild. We are one living, connected, breathing thing that cannot be caged and thrive at the same time. That must be free. So in the end, it's all about rewilding our relationships with everything, with food, with power, with community, with spirituality, with ourselves. This is coming back into our true selves, coming back into, boom, being free. Subscribe if you want to help me out, like if you want to spread the message, and press the notification bell if you want to. I don't know, I don't like telling people to subscribe, but anyway.